Good evening and welcome to HR Rewritten, a seat at the Taboo Table. Becky, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I'm so glad to see you. We'll talk about our apparel in just a little bit. For everyone that's joining us, this is going to be a special tribute to my mother. So, deep breath. um, I talk about leadership a lot. Um, the strongest leader I ever had was my mom. And I said goodbye to her 12 years ago today in about 30 minutes. So I've asked Becky to help me do a tribute to her and say lots of good stuff about my mom. And hopefully you all will enjoy this podcast because it's going to be seeing a side of me that maybe many of you have not had a chance to see. And it's going to help me be vulnerable in front of thrones of people. So with that, let's jump in. Becky?
Excellent. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much, Tori, for inviting me to be a part of this special podcast. I am so excited to dive deeper into learning about your mother more and the degree and inspiration that you've become who you are because of her. And I'm very excited for others to hear this story as well. One thing I wanted to start with was asking if your mother walked into the room, what would be the first thing that people notice?
Um, I think the first thing you would notice about my mom is her smile. She had a terrific smile, and she had a love for the color red. So we'll get into that. That's why we're wearing red this evening. But specifically, she looked fantastic and beautiful in red lipstick. And when my mom was a young woman, she had a very beautiful figure and she had dark hair, and she was American Indian and German. And so she had beautiful high cheekbones and she had dark features, kind of olivey skin. She always had dark hair, and she always just looked so fantastic in red lipstick. And um, a story, very first story I'll share with you about my mom after she passed. I was going through her things and cleaning out her things, and I went through a jacket pocket of hers and pulled out a tube of lipstick, and it was L'Oreal brand, and it was called British Redcoat. And I treasured it and I kept it. I still have it today. And I would use it for a few years. I would use it very sparingly, like on, if I was doing something for Memorial Day or 4th of July or something, I was wearing red, I would pull out the lipstick and use her British Redcoat. And I think it was about 2022, I was working with a vendor, and I was telling her a little bit about my mom and explaining, I told her about that, finding the tube of lipstick, and I still had it. And a couple of weeks later, she never met me in person, this vendor, but at my work, I received a package and a handwritten note that said, "Keep your mom's British Redcoat. Here's a tube you can use." So tonight I'm wearing British Redcoat, but
Wow.
I'm wearing my mom's British Redcoat tonight. So
that in itself is a beautiful tribute, and how fantastic of a story that that impacted them so much that they wanted you to preserve hers, and provide you with more for you to be, be able to use every day, and pay that daily tribute to her. That is beautiful. How would you say that your mother made people feel safe around her in the way that they came and talked with her?
I just remembered a story, and I'm going to share this story because she she loved people. She loved people from all walks of life, and she was welcoming to everyone. And I grew up in rural southern Missouri, out in the middle of nowhere. We farmed, and I rode the school bus an hour and a half one way. And so, I mean, we lived simply, right? But when I was little, I remembered seeing on the news, California was a world away. And I remember seeing a news story about the Hells Angels in California. And, it scared me, right? Well, fast forward probably 20 years. I don't know. I can't remember what year it was. But where our property sits in rural Missouri, there's about 40 acres that my family doesn't own. And there was a canoe rental. So you rented canoes at this little store and you floated the river, right? And all of our property has live water running through it. And my mom heard by the grapevine that the Hells Angels were coming to camp at the campground. And she called me on the phone and she goes, "You're never going to believe this." And I said, "What?" And she goes, "The Hells Angels are coming here." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "The Hells Angels are coming here." And I said, "Well, just stay home. Don't go around them." And next thing I knew, she called me the next day and she goes, "They are the nicest people." And she made my dad drive her to the campground, introduced herself, welcomed them to the area. And she goes, "There's nothing bad about those fellas. They're just not." So she never met a stranger. She loved everybody. If she loved you fiercely. Now, if you got on her bad side, you knew that as well, right? But she loved everybody, and she just had a warmth about her that I can only describe it as an aura. Like where she went, it was warm. Like she was a very receiving soul, and never met a stranger. I could talk for days about my mom and tell stories, and probably some that she doesn't want me to tell, but I could another story out in rural America where we lived. I can remember when the movie Bridges of Madison County came out, and she adored Clint Eastwood, and she just thought Clint Eastwood was amazing. And my dad actually at one time played in a golf tournament in California, and Clint Eastwood, it was a pro-am tournament, and Clint Eastwood was there. And one of my friends was caddying for Clint Eastwood. And so my mom and dad got to kind of meet him. And she called me right away on the phone. And she said, "Tori, I'm telling you, if Clint Eastwood ever comes to Twin Bridges, like Bridges of Madison County, I'm leaving with him." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, Mother, really?" And she goes, "Yeah, your dad will just have to fend for himself. I don't know what to tell." And she was just funny like that. She, just really, really fun.
Well, she sounds like an incredibly likable person, and she sounds like one of those people who has that amazing skill of, like you said, making friends with strangers. Like they felt like they've known them, known her their entire lives. And just real quick, it's so funny you brought up the Hells Angels. I grew up about 10 minutes from the original clubhouse in San Bernardino, and it's still there. It's like a little museum. It's just so hilarious because I also have heard stories about, they can be sweet as kittens sometimes, but I think that is absolutely phenomenal that your mom was like, you know what? I'm going to go check it out.
Yes,
And she
no fear.
sounded so brave and daring that she did not feel afraid. What else would you say about her presence that you think others just immediately picked up on?
Um, you know, probably people that knew her could have some different takes on it, but I just think that her presence was warm when she walked into the room, or if she was in a room and people arrived in the room, and my mom, I think I never realized it until after she was gone, just had she was a confident woman when she needed to be, right? And she was strong when she needed to be, but she also had very vulnerable times. And but it was her strength that, when she got sick, um I don't ever remember her complaining. Now she would say, I'm not feeling well today, or I'm not, it's this is not the best day, but as far as complaining, no. And she would get up and try to make the best of it, and she wasn't really sick until about the last 4 months of her life. So I mean, she dealt with an autoimmune disease for about 30 years before it really evolved and ended up being her ultimate demise. Um, but you know I just think one thing I do want to mention, and maybe this is the time, but the way I named my business was 922 is my birthday. And so that was the very first day that I met my mother, because I was born to her and my father. I'm the youngest of three. Um, I'm the clown. I'm the jokester of the family. I'm the baby. I'm the spoiled one. There's 6 years difference between my brother and I, and there's 7 years difference between my sister and I. So I'm the baby, and I was the comedian, of the family, and so anyway, 922 I named because that was the first day I met my mom, and my logo is symbolic to pay tribute to her, because her favorite animal was the penguin, and she collected them. She loved penguins. She loved shows about penguins, documentaries about penguins, um, all the things. And when I started researching and was trying to determine my name and everything and do the logo, the penguin spiritually is a symbol of change. It represents new beginnings and the resilience needed to stay strong in life's difficult moments. And I just thought none could be more fitting than 922 Solutions. So that's how the name landed. And I hope I answered your question.
You did. And I just want to say, based on your amazing comedic abilities and your sense of humor and everything, would you say some of that's attributed to her, things that you picked up from her?
100%. Yes, 100%. I mean, I have to give my dad credit too. I was just having a conversation with my dad the other day about, I said, well, I think I'm a pretty good mix of you and mom, because people will say, people that know me and knew her will always say, you look like your mom. The older you get, you look like your mom. When you wear your glasses, you look like your mom. I said, oh, I act like her too. Don't worry about that. But yes, she had a dry sense of humor. I'll share a funny story. This is probably one that she wouldn't care. Who am I kidding? So they lived 25 miles out in the country, and there was a dirt road that ran right down beside their house. And at one time, we owned a sand and gravel business. So we had dump trucks and we would haul rock and gravel. And um, their house kind of set up on a hill, and there was a retaining wall. So a normal car that turned down the dirt road, they really couldn't see up into the yard. But when a dump truck turned off of the highway, they sat up high enough that they could see up in the yard. And one day I was going to my parents' house for some reason, and I pull up in the driveway, and my mom is sitting out in a lawn chair in the front yard. I mean, on the patio, in one of my dad's t-shirts and her underwear. And I got out of the car and I said, "Mom, what are you doing out here?
Where are your pants?" Yes.
And she said, "What?" And I said, I said, "If there's truck drivers coming in and out of the gravel plant, they can see you sitting up here with no pants on, just your underwear." Stone cold face. She looks up at me like I'm crazy. And she goes, "Well, if they haven't seen it by now, they need to." And I'm like, "Okay."
That is hilarious. Definitely some confidence going on there.
She she lived life. She
Mhm.
absolutely lived life. And, you know, we can talk more about, her last days, but, at her visitation, there was a gentleman that graduated from high school with her that was at her visitation. And he came up to me and introduced himself, and he said, "I know you don't know me. I went to school with your mom, and the one thing that I need you to take away when you leave here tonight is always know that she was sunshine and lollipops."
Mhm.
And that was endearing to me because I will share with you that the place that I worked at the time in Iowa, I had a safety director, and he is former military. He might even be watching tonight. I don't know, but he was former military, and he always used to, he could be really gruff, and people would perceive him as being hard. And he told me the first time that he met me, he's like, "You know what? I'm the gruff old bleep, 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 and you are sunshine and lollipops." And so when my mom passed and this complete stranger comes up to me and says, "The one thing I need you to know is your mom was sunshine and lollipops," I was like, "Yep, she's right here."
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that, Tori. With her sense of humor, um, would she tease you? And what ways would she tease you? Ever get under your skin or anything like that?
Oh, in school, she was like, "Oh, do you have a crush on so and so?" Or, she would never take it too far because as you know, I'm an empath, and my whole family knows that. The opening of the show proved that, right? I'm a crier. I, my
You're
emotions,
human. That's what this is about.
yeah,
Yes.
my
Mhm.
emotions surface, so my mom was always mindful of, we would banter and we would tease, but she knew, I was sensitive, and she never, I don't ever remember my mom. She probably did, but I don't ever remember. That's not a vivid memory for me. Her intentionally hurting my feelings. I'm sure she did, but I think her being gone 12 years, the things that are etched in my mind is just all the good stuff. And all the good stuff far outweighs any bad stuff I remember. And I think that's true with most people, right? I think if you have a good relationship, and then you lose somebody, I think as time progresses, you more so remember the legacy moments than you do the challenging ones. But oh yeah, I mean, my dad is a really funny person too. He has a really dry sense of humor. My mom had a dry sense of humor. And they just, I think, like I say, I think I got the best of both worlds. But I mean, I definitely have characteristics and traits of hers that are really, for people that know both of us, that knew her very well and know me, I think they would say, yeah, you're your mama's daughter.
That's incredible. And other than the legendary story with the, Hell's Angels, what's another story that or a memory that you think of that immediately makes you laugh the moment it crosses your mind?
Oh my gosh, Becky, there are there are so many. Um, I'd have to think about. There are so many. I want to give a shout out. My best friend flew in yesterday from Missouri, and she's here, and we have talked about my mom all day long. And she's got stories. I mean, she would take my mom shopping, and you know, just all the things. My mom always, well, this goes back to some of the medical stuff, but we had gone to a medical appointment in St. Louis, and we were on the way home, and she was in the back seat of the car. My dad was driving. I was in the passenger seat. She was in the back seat, and she was being really quiet. And I said, "What are you doing back there?" And she didn't say anything. And about that time, the clinic in St. Louis called, and the nurse said, "Tori, you need to pull over." She said, "We got your mom's blood work back, and her blood sugar's really kind of off the charts, and we're very concerned about this number." And I turned around, and she had a bag of pecan sandy cookies back there, stuffing them. I said, "Give me those cookies right now."
Oh my
And she
word.
goes, "What? What's the problem?" And I said, "No, no more. You don't get any more. Your blood sugar's really high." And she goes, "I feel fine. I feel fine." So
Oh my
she just, I mean, she took life in stride. And, you know, if it wasn't knocking her down physically, if she wasn't physically ill from it, you know, when they told her she had cancer, she was like, I don't feel bad. Let's get this cancer out of here. I don't feel bad. I mean, she was one of the toughest people I knew. I mean, honestly, because I don't ever remember her complaining.
That's incredible. And listening to you share these stories, all of them have the same theme of her being very confident, and not really giving a hoot about what anyone else is thinking. Um, what would you say she would roll her eyes at?
Oh, she didn't like it when she could visibly see. I mean, this went from somebody, people in town, people that she'd known her whole life, you know, um, people on TV shows, anything. Um, she didn't like it when people tried to act like they were better than anybody else, or they had, you know, um, they had more than anybody else. Or, I mean, she liked people for who they are. And, I believe that I am that way. I know people. I've come across a lot of people in my career. I rarely meet a stranger. I can talk to anybody. I fly quite a bit. I make friends on the plane. We were at a restaurant today grabbing a burger for lunch, and I'm standing up there getting some, squirting the ketchup and getting some ketchup and mustard and all the things. And there was a gentleman standing there, and he was from Tennessee, and I struck up a conversation with him. He's like, "Oh, we're here visiting my son." And I mean, that was my mom, and that's the legacy that she instilled in me. Value people for who they are. And I think um, I'm gonna say that I'm really good at HR because I value people for who they are, and what they bring to the table, right? And she taught me that. She taught me that, you know, everybody has a place, and it takes all of us. And she didn't care if you had two dimes to rub together, or if you had 28 gazillion dollars. She didn't care. Didn't matter to her. She liked you for who you were and how you treated people. And I mean, that would, I mean, I'm probably, that's one of the things I'm most proud of, because I believe that too. I don't care if you have purple skin, I mean, I'm gonna like you, and I can meet you where you are, and I'm not better than you, and I'm not less than you. And she
And really,
instilled that in me.
and really, you think that would be something that people are inherently born with being able to do, but more and more we're seeing that it's not as common as you would think it is. And a lot of that is either it being modeled for you, or you experiencing something that inspires you to, be
Yeah,
different. But it just sounds like her whole existence, your time with her was just full of amazing influence from her. Would you be able to take a step back right now and share a little bit of that journey to the point that she got sick, and share some of those details with us?
yeah, yeah. She was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease when I was a junior in high school, and it was almost 30 years before it evolved. It evolved. No one ever told us, right? All they told us is eventually she's going to have a liver transplant, probably. And so in October of 2013, she was diagnosed with a rare form of liver cancer. It was called hepatocellular carcinoma. And so we went to St. Louis. I was living in Iowa at the time, and my husband and I drove down. We met with the oncologist, and they had a procedure that they could do, and he had an opening the next day. So we drove back to Iowa. My family went back to my hometown, and then I left at about 2 o'clock in the morning and drove back to St. Louis, because she wanted that treatment, and she wanted that cancer out of her, right? Well, when I went home that night, I did exactly what they told me not to do, but this is typical Tori. My brain is analytical. I need to know what I'm dealing with. I need all the facts, all the data, because I'll deal with it, right? So I Googled it, and it said the longest anyone had lived with hepatocellular carcinoma was 4 to 6 months was average. No one had lived longer than 6 months. So I drove in the middle of the night back to St. Louis by myself to meet my family, and honestly, I bartered with God the whole trip. But I had to understand what I was dealing with. But anyway, fast forward, we got to February. I mean, January was really rough. She had some hiccups and some time in the hospital. She was on a ventilator for a number of days, and it was getting to the point where, the nurses were like, if she doesn't start responding and kind of waking up on her own, we're going to have to start talking, and so staying at the hospital, I would drive down from Iowa for a week. it was just a really, really rough time. And so we got to the Sunday, it was, I guess, the 16th of February. And she was in ICU, and my family called me and said they've given her 48 to 72 hours. And I said, okay, so I'm standing in front of my closet trying to find something to wear to a funeral that, I'm 8 hours away. And so I drove 8 hours, and I got to the hospital, and she had had her hair done for Valentine's Day, and she was sitting up in the bed, and she had on a diamond pendant that my dad had bought her for Valentine's Day. And I walk in, and this is my mom. I mean, she was stern and strong. Trust me, she was the disciplinarian. And I walk in, and she goes, "I don't know why every time I get the sniffles, you think you have to drive 8 hours." And I said, "I just had to come and see my favorite Valentine." And so I only left the hospital from then to go and shower and come back. And I was there, and that was Sunday night. By Monday afternoon, she looked at me and she said, I'm really tired." And here's the thing. At that time, Charming Charlie was a real big deal. I don't know if but she loved Charming Charlie. And when she bought earrings, then she had to buy a purse, and then she might have to buy the scarf that I mean, she was all about it, right? And but the complications from January up until that point, she had diabetes, she had that aggressive form of cancer in her, and at one point she had lost her blood pressure had dropped, and she'd kind of lost circulation. So her extremities were affected by that. And ultimately, they had spoken to us, and they were going to talk about amputating her foot. And she was distraught over that. That was bothering her. And the reason it was bothering her, she goes, "How will I go to Charming Charlie? How will I walk through Charming Charlie if I don't have a foot?" And I said, "Mom, I'll get you a gold foot. Don't worry about it. We'll get you a matching foot for whatever color you're wearing that day. It's not a big deal. We'll get you a foot." Well, then they came back, and then they were going to have to amputate a little higher, and it just got. This was a conversation that happened really rapidly over the course of about 6 hours, and she wasn't really included in that conversation. But the irony, the doctor that was caring for her in my hometown, she had actually babysat when he was little, and it was really hard on him too. But he called us out into the hallway, and he said, "Look, I think we don't amputate because, number one, I'm not sure that she would make it through the surgery. Number two, she's still got a very aggressive form of cancer that's ultimately going to take her life. And number three, it's just not worth it." And so we made the decision not to do that. And I remember walking back in the room, and she said, "I just got the best news." I said, "What is it?" And she said, "They don't have to cut my foot off." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "So we're going to be able to go to Charming Charlie." I said, "We're going to be able to go to Charming Charlie."
Priorities, right?
Yeah. But that was on Monday afternoon, and then on Monday night, she said, "I'm just really tired." And I said, "Just lay back, take a nap." And she never really, she would open her eyes, but it was just consuming her. And by Tuesday night, she was kind of really not responding at all. And by Wednesday, her sister was 15 years older than her. And my cousin actually brought her sister, that was her only living sibling at that time, and brought her. And, you know, I've heard my entire life how when people are getting ready to pass, they wait for certain people or certain members of the family to get there. And I think that's what my mom was waiting on. I think she was waiting on her sister. And bless her heart, her sister had dementia, and she knew it was her sister. But she really didn't know what was going on. But about 7:30, right around 7:30 on Wednesday night, she passed, and we were there. My dad and my sister and her husband, my brother and his wife, and me and my husband, and we were all in there with her. And I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Well, sounds
It
like it
was
was
it
a
was
beautiful
peaceful.
season.
It was peaceful.
Absolutely. Now, when the medical season got hard, what would you say surprised you about her?
That right up until, I mean, you know, me arriving on Sunday night, and they had already told me, you know, she's got 48 to 72 hours. And when I got there, I pulled my sister out into the hallway and I said, somebody's made a mistake. Like, I mean, she was sitting up in bed. She had her hair fixed. I mean, we laughed and joked all night. I spent the night with her there, and we laughed and joked all night long. And I mean, she did not give up until she just couldn't, right?
Right.
And
Well,
I mean, she is the epitome of resilience.
that is amazing. And one thing I wanted to tack on to that is during that time, what surprised you about yourself?
Um, well, I'd like to say my strength, but
Mhm.
I, that was
What would you
probably
say that strength looked like?
chaos.
Was it? Mhm.
I was trying to deal with all the things, and I will tell you that their pastor at the time, I love Brother Bill Bells. He's retired now, but he was sitting at the hospital. He is such a gentle, kind soul. And I was sitting in the hallway with him, and I remember saying to him, Brother Bill, I just wish God would take her, because I don't want her to suffer. I don't want her to suffer longer than she has to. And he said, I appreciate you saying that. And I fully understand that that's the way you feel. But he said, I will also tell you this to prepare you. The minute she draws her last breath, you'll want her back.
Mhm. And isn't that such a tough struggle? You know you're going to miss them. You don't want to let them go, but you don't want them to suffer anymore. And
Correct.
sometimes you have that battle of, are you being selfish because you want them to stay? Um, and I think it's only natural, especially with your parent, that you don't want them to go because you have no idea what life is going to be like because they've always been there.
Right.
Um, so I don't know if you ever had challenges with, um, that particular scenario of you want her to stay, but you don't want her to be, you know,
Oh yeah.
suffering
And
anymore in
and I
pain.
think, you know, not to get on my religious platform, but I think my faith probably, I had some dark times, you know, when I returned to work, and I had an office with a side light, you know, at the door, and then there was a glass panel, and a piece of 8.5 by 11 copy paper fit perfectly in that side light. And there was one day, and grief is an interesting thing, you know, um, because it comes at unannounced times. It comes when you least expect it sometimes. And I just found myself being overwhelmed with grief at the most inopportune times. And I think it taught me vulnerability. Like, it was okay to be in a leadership level and for people to see me cry, right? Um, I can remember being in my office one day and I just got overwhelmed with emotion. And I can't even tell you, I mean, it wasn't that you don't have to see something that triggers you. It just comes, right? It just comes at the most, I'll say, inopportune time. Today, I will say it comes at the exact right time because what I have learned and what I try to pass on to other people that, my friends that have since lost parents or lost their mother is that allow yourself to feel those emotions when it comes. Um, and I can remember being in my office that day and I just got overcome with emotion. And I got copy paper out of my printer in my office and taped over the side light from top to bottom. And I laid in the floor of my office and cried for about 45 minutes. And then I picked myself up and went back to work. And I I still to this day don't know, but I mean, her strength is what endured for me. You know, it's okay to show your vulnerability. And another reason that I wanted to do this particular podcast, but another reason that we've partnered together and done the HR Rewritten, because I think for the majority of my career so far, I always had to be on, right? I always had to be on and perfect and polished and present well and not say and not say oh and not stutter and not
I need polishing. Yes.
right. And and it's time just to be human, and it's okay to be human.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask, this will be my last question before we ask the audience some questions. But my question was, in how you conduct business, what in business would you say is 100% her?
The way I treat people. From I think you and I had this conversation the other day, the meme that goes around occasionally on LinkedIn that you show respect for people all the way from the CEO to the janitor. You don't treat the janitor any differently than you do the CEO. And a lot of people have said that they think that's cliche because it's wrong. I don't think it's wrong. I don't think it's wrong at all. I think you treat people as people and as valued people. You respect people and you respect the job that they do. And, for my mom just instilled that in me. Like, be humble and be kind. And she used to tell me, I'd call her all the time and I'd say, this didn't go right today. This, I could have done better, or I could have made a better choice, or, I'd be beating myself up. And she said, you know what? As long as you can lay your head on the pillow every night and know that you did the very best job you could do, you can rest peacefully. And tomorrow's a new day.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, she was so wise, and I probably didn't really appreciate it until after she was gone, unfortunately. I mean, I did, but not to the extent that I do today.
Wow. And she sounds like she was just absolutely remarkable.
She wasn't perfect. I am not here to say she was perfect, but you know what? She was perfect for me. She was perfect for me. And she taught me a lot. And I think the most important thing that I've carried through my career is I treat everyone with kindness and respect.
I love that. And that's the perfect lead into my question for the audience. What trait from someone you love do you carry with you? And we would love to open up the chat
Yeah.
lines and see what people comment. And Tori, if you can, bring those to light and share those with everyone. We'll give everyone a moment. And while we're getting responses from that, where would you say you feel her influence, her wisdom when things get difficult, when you're feeling that pressure?
Oh my gosh. She's with me all the time. I I literally can feel her energy. I can feel her steady me. I can feel her align me when if I get quiet, when I'm chaotic and feel like the whole world is against me, if I get quiet with myself, she comes to me and she will give me the guidance I need. 100%. 100%. The qualities, the knowledge, the humility that she instilled in me, she brings it to me, and yeah.
That's incredible. Do you see anything in the comments that you'd like to highlight, Tori?
I'm just seeing now my friend Steph is in here. Our friend Rod is in here. Gregory's in here. It's so good to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining. My friend Julie. Hey, Julie. Um, I know Julie lost her dad a few years ago, and she was very close to her dad. And she says she thinks she carries her father's moral compass, and that's incredible. Julie's an incredible person. I'm proud to call her my friend. I tell you, I have so many people in my life that have always um, propped me up and been there for me. Um, Someone says, I think your mom and my mom are doppelgangers. My mom was also super kind and humble, and people were drawn to her. That's awesome. There's no greater legacy, in my opinion, than that. I mean, that's a huge compliment. And I think young kids probably, when you see young kids and they say, an older person says, "Oh, you look like your mom," or "You look like your dad," and they go, "Ooh," you know. And when people say that now to me, I'm like, that's the greatest compliment. When someone says, "You look like your mom," that's the greatest compliment to me that I could ever receive. And I don't even care if they say I act like her. Becky, you'll be seeing me cruising through the streets of California on the back of a bike of a Hell's Angel before too long. Oh, your mic's off. Your mic's off, my friend.
Sorry, I'm going to hold you to that, is what I was saying.
Okay.
I do see that Gregory shared that his mother was a person that will move heaven and earth to get something done. And that's he thinks that's where he gets his sort of weakness of being a doormat to people. But I got to say, to Gregory's credit, that he is amazing.
He
And
is
if
amazing.
he picked that up from his mother, she did an amazing job with him. So absolutely love that. And just based off of what you said about, if people are like, "Oh, you look like your mom or dad," um, I don't know how it would happen, but people would be like, "Oh, are you a such and such?" And I don't want to bore people with my last name, my maiden name. But I'm like, yes. How do you know? They're like, "You look just like your dad." I'm like, I look like a man, but it was okay. But just him having such distinct features, and it makes me feel like, wow, I've got those distinct features too. Um, but yeah, sometimes you don't appreciate those things until way later in life,
Yep.
or hindsight's always 2020. But I love the fact that we've been able to hear these wonderful stories from the audience members.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. If anyone has questions, I mean, I'm an open book, and again, I mean, this is about growth that I have absolutely experienced in the last few years, about allowing my vulnerability to show and not having to be perfect or attempting to be. I mean, I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but not having to be on all the time. It's okay to be vulnerable and show your softer side. And I think that's what makes me relatable in a lot of instances, and a voice for employees when I'm in that situation. um,
Absolutely.
so,
And I just saw in the comments, Rod, thank you for sharing this. And forgive me because I'm going to do a terrible job pronouncing the last name. But he wrote, "This reminds me of my favorite quote from one of my favorite writers and philosophers, Khalil Gibran. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight." What
wow.
a beautiful quote, and how appropriate to this conversation. Thank you, Rod, for sharing that. People, write that down. Take a screenshot, something. It's beautiful.
Yes, exactly. If anyone needs that after the podcast, just reach out to me, because I'm just telling you, I've met some incredible people in the last several weeks, and people that I now call great friends, although we've never met in person. Becky, you're absolutely one of them. I'm so happy to be partnered with you, and
Yes.
you know, doing our thing. And I'm happy that I could do this tribute to my mom, because she still is very special to me, and I carry her legacy, and I know she is proud of me, and I just want to continue to make her proud.
And that's amazing. And really, from the time that we had our first conversation to the time that we put this together, even to today, it's amazing. I think it's a testament of how much you are like your mother, because immediately we connected and we had such a mutual respect for one another, no judgment or anything like that. And just being able to, carry through that humanness and that empathy, all those amazing traits, not just as a human being, but incorporating that into leadership. That is a beautiful legacy that you are living every single day for her. So that's amazing.
Thank you. I again want to welcome all the comments. I mean, you
Yes.
guys are welcome to ask questions. Don't think anything is off the
Off
table.
limits or.
I'm an
Mhm.
open book. A LinkedIn user said, "Do you think that a person can be too nice?" I don't. I don't think a person can be too nice. I think people can be taken advantage of by really mean and nasty people.
Yes. But I think there's also, and not to cut you off, Tori, I think there's also a degree of
Just my chair.
really.
I feel like I'm sinking.
Oh, differentiating, differentiating, I can talk, between niceness and kindness. And, I think when you're just being too nice, that is where the window of people taking advantage of you really opens. But if you're being kind, I don't think there's any limit to kindness, because you are making sure that people understand that you do have boundaries. You're a kind person, but you're not going to be taken advantage of. Um, so I appreciate that question too. Thank you, LinkedIn user.
And it made me think of one thing I thought of earlier. My mom, if she loved you and somebody was being mean, to somebody that she knew or something, I mean, she'd fight a polar bear for people that she loved. And one of the things that she used to say all the time is, "I can kick my dog, but you better not."
Yeah,
And
right.
you
That's
know, I mean,
hilarious.
she could be tough. I mean, she could be tough. But she also, if she loved you fiercely. She loved her family fiercely.
And I love that example because, I'm the fourth of five children. And with siblings, you don't always get along, but in school or wherever, if someone's giving you a hard time, it's like, you can't pick on them. That's my sibling. That's my job, right? And
Yes,
they will rally for you and they will defend you,
yes.
which is awesome. But then you come back home and
One-
they're making you smell, an armpit or something. I'm sorry. I
Oh, I could
digress.
tell some stories on my brother, but just in case he's watching, I won't do that tonight.
I love what Julie said. Um, and I don't think I'm repeating this. I hope I'm not. Where she said, "You have amazing strength, Tori, and resilience," and she's glad you were able to channel your mom's influence and bring it to your success. And I love that others can see that as well.
I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed.
Mhm.
I had what I consider very humble upbringing with, I mean, we didn't drive through McDonald's and get dinner every night. My mom cooked at home, and I can remember. So it was so exciting when we got the mobile dishwasher that you had to hook up to the sink. I mean, nobody hated loading the dishwasher because you always had to do dishes by hand, right? But
Mhm.
my mom cooked every night. We sat around the table. The five of us sat around the table and had meals together, and I attribute that to my upbringing. Like I said, I rode the school bus one way an hour and a half, and I don't tell that story. I don't tell the story about my upbringing for people to feel sorry for me, because I never was without, or if I was without, I didn't know it, because I always had exactly what I needed. I never went hungry. I never went, without basic necessities. And I will tell you, um over the course of the last 2.5 years, I've lost 90 pounds. And I've had some
Congratulations.
medical challenges of my own, but I was always a big girl. I was always, I'd be the girl. Oh, you've got a pretty face, but I never was, you know, I always wanted to go into television, right? I wanted to be on the news. I wanted to be a news broadcaster, but I was too heavy. I wanted to be a flight attendant, and I worked and worked and worked and worked and lost weight, and I had to have full length pictures taken. And I remember getting the letter in the mail. I was 3 pounds over their top weight limit, and they would not hire me. And it was challenging like that, right? It was. I was always a big girl, but my mom never made me feel bad about that. She would talk to me about, we should really try to help you lose some weight or whatever. I mean, she battled her weight too. And she always just told me, she goes, I don't care what size you are. I want you to look nice and professional and good in your clothes. I don't care what size they are. We're going to get clothes that fit you. And she would always say, you know, Tori, you're not made for a bikini. And I'm like, no, I get it. No, I get it. I get it. Um, and she would say, just because they make it in that size doesn't mean that you should be wearing. I mean, she was really, she had a great sense of fashion, and she loved clothes. And I mean, I think I get that from her too. I mean, my dad loves clothes too. He's a pretty sharp dressed fella. He's got all the suits and all the ties, and he looks pretty dapper going to church on Sunday. But my mom loved to dress, and she loved to look nice. And I know there were times growing up that we didn't have the money, and my mom sacrificed. She didn't have all the nice things just so I could have a few nice things, and feel like I was in the in crowd or whatever. And um, I think that gave me confidence. And I just, everybody always thinks that I have so much confidence, but honestly, Becky, it's been a struggle for me. I haven't, I beat myself up probably more than anybody realizes. I'm the toughest critic on myself.
Wow. Well, I know we're getting short on time. We're getting ready to wrap up, but I wanted to ask you a final question. But I know we talked about your mother being with you all the time, and
Always.
we know that she's with you right now. If you could hear her, what would you want her to say?
Oh, I think that probably just I know she's proud of me.
Mhm. And what would you want her to know?
She'll never stop carrying me.
That is beautiful. Tori, thank you so much for sharing these wonderful insights to your mother, to your upbringing, what made you who you are today. And we appreciate you inviting all of us into this wonderful, platform, this area, this venue of being able to share in these moments with you, and opening up the comments for others to share their experiences and their questions as well.
It's absolutely been my pleasure. And this is me. And
Mhm.
I hope people um, maybe have seen a side of me that they don't always get to see. And hopefully it gives somebody else hope, you know? Be the person that you're meant to be. And if you get quiet, you'll know. And there are people that influence you every day. Maybe it's your aunt, maybe it's your grandma, maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your sister, maybe it's your brother, maybe whoever it is. Um, you know, be the person that you're meant to be.
Mhm. I love that. I'm going to let you go ahead and do the wrap up. And
Okay.
I'm grateful for everyone who joined us today. So grateful to you, Tori, for sharing this history with us.
Well, I really do want to say to you, Becky, thank you. For those of you in the chat or joining us, Becky and I have never met in person. We've only been talking for probably about 2 months now. We met through
Mhm.
LinkedIn, and have developed this friendship and are doing these podcasts. But um, I just want to say thank you to everybody that has been in the chat and joining us tonight. And if I can ever be a resource or a help to you, I mean, please reach out. And Gregory, we're going to work on your confidence there. We're not going to let Gregory be a doormat. So thank you
Ever.
so much, everyone, for attending tonight. And we will see you on the next HR Rewritten, a seat at the taboo table, brought to you by 922 Solutions.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
everyone.
everyone.